My father became a welder, a diesel mechanic and welder, so he worked for Isimoto, which is still a big company here. And then my mother worked at different fish markets. So she worked first at Suisang Fish Market. And then she worked for Ushijima Fish Market. And Ushijima Fish Market, when the old man retired, my mother took over. So she changed the name to Kilauea Fish Market. So it became my mother's one-person fish market, but she would go to the auction, and sometimes I would go with her. And at that time, she was the only lady at the auction. But my mother is very headstrong too, so she'll just bid with the men, and sometimes I would go with her. And Hiro, the old man who's the auctioneer, I can't understand him at all, but he would be the one auctioning off the fish, and my mother would buy. And sometimes my mother would buy our dinner, so it doesn't matter what the price is. But I would go there and tell my mother it's too expensive, and the Hiro would scold me because I would say things like that. But when she had the 200-pound ahi, she would saw off the head right over there and fillet to quarters. And then she had this red Datsun with a stainless steel pan in the back, and she would put the fish in her station wagon, the back, and then she would put the head in, because with the head she would use the hatchet and chop it up and make it into ara, which is all the bones and the big fish eye that you would eat. You would cook it with shoyu and sugar and ginger. It's really good. And then the bones she would chop up too. And then I think the bones mostly people who used to catch crab would go and get the scraps, and they would tie it onto the fish net and go crabbing, so she would give it to them. And then the fillet, even the skin. I was just telling the sushi man the other day in Honolulu that the fat skin of the ahi, she would parboil it. She would scale it and parboil it, and then she would make a miso sauce for it. And it's really good, just if you like rubbery things like taco, that would be good too. So she had all these recipes for this. And then one thing, I remember one time when she had 30 aku, just about this big. I timed her to see how fast she would quarter it, and she did it in 30 seconds each aku. And with the inside, I would grind the aku, the innards, to make bagong. It's a bagong or shokara, which is fermented salted fish innards. But it's, shokara means very salty, and they would put that on top of hot rice and eat it. But Filipinos would use it for sauce to make all their food tasty, and it's really good. But my mother herself didn't eat it, but we would get a gallon, and then she would put lots of salt and stir it every day, and then keep it for a year before she put it in little jars. And everybody liked my mother's one. Hers is really good. I remember being at the fish market. My job was to clean up after her, and then one day we saw Safeway coming up across the street. That was the first Safeway in Hilo. And when we were just watching it come up, and then when I went to go see the store, they had only 5-pound bag rice. I said, I don't think this store is going to last, because in Hilo you don't buy 5-pound rice, you buy 20 or 100-pound rice, because everybody eats rice. But later on they adapted as they went along. My father, he was disabled because one time the welding tank blew up by his hand, and his hand became disabled, so he didn't work anymore. So he would go and he would think of how to improve the fish market. So what he did is he made the recipe for the sakuraboshi, which my mother makes. Sakuraboshi is like barbecued fish. So what she did is he even told her exactly how long to cut the fish and how wide to cut the fish, and then they would soak it in sugar, shoyu, ginger, garlic, and a red wine. They would soak it for 3 days, and then after they soak it, they would get a dryer, because Hilo, it has too much rain to dry it outside. So they got a dryer, and he would lay it all in the dryer and put white sesame seeds. And then you would dry it for so long and then flip it over and dry the other side. Usually the fish markets would make sakura boshi with the leftover ahi because, if it doesn't sell for sashimi, then they would use that. But my mother, because that was her specialty afterwards, she would just buy the ahi and then go right and she would freeze some and then she would make as much as she could. And she used to sell it to SureSave, Food Fair, and KTA. And then afterwards, when the other stores went closed down, KTA would buy anything she would make because they really liked my mother's one. And then my father also made a smoked fish recipe, but she usually used kahala and marlin. Kahala is a smaller fish that had like a noodle-shaped worms. So what I would do is, after my mother filleted, my job was to pull out the worms. But I don't mind eating it because I know there's no worms after I pull it out. But with that, she would make the smoked fish, and it's really good, that and marlin. And then she also made dried aku with the after she quartered the aku, she would make dried aku. Another thing that she made once in a while is katsuo bushi. The katsuo means the aku, and what they do is quarter it, and she would roast it until it becomes dry, and then you have this the shaver. They would shave it and make it into those fine things that they would put on top of Japanese food, because it has a nice flavor.